You're listening to the Storm Report, your weekly insight into the Manchester Storm, brought to you by Storm TV's Maddie Finnegan.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 8 of the Storm Report podcast, your official and exclusive podcast for the Manchester Storm. What a week it's been in the time since we last had a podcast. A lot has happened, a lot has changed, including we now have a new interim head coach, Mike Moran, who turns out is joining us right now for the start of this podcast. We're so lucky to have you. Mikey Mo, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. Thank you. I just got out of the office at 2:00, which is a very unusual thing for me, but that's all part and parcel of what I've undertaken here. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, there'll be loads of like new things to get used to, I guess, and I think you might have some longer office hours. But you've come in as the interim head coach in what is a changing time for the Manchester Storm, and that's going to draw a lot of attention to yourself. And there'll be quite a few Storm fans, old and new, maybe probably the older ones will have a bit more of a clue. But to those that are new and have never really seen you before and don't know much about you, you've actually been a part of the Manchester Storm for quite some time. Could you tell the new fans a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I came over in '96. I didn't even know 1996. I didn't even know where Manchester was, but I had an opportunity to play for the Storm. It was all brand new Super League. It was, all exciting. I was moving overseas, and then I ended up staying over here. Well, I'm still here. So played for the Storm for 6 seasons, and then a couple little stints elsewhere that we won't speak about. And then, 10 years ago, Neil Russell grabbed a hold of me at a game, and Omar Pasha roped me into helping out, and here I am, still going, but always as an assistant, never with too much responsibility or pressure until last Monday.
Yeah, last Monday, getting probably the biggest promotion possible at the Storm. I want to kind of say, because with so much time being spent in Manchester after admittedly not knowing where or what Manchester was as a city, how much does it mean to you to then be offered the interim head coaching role?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it's not something I ever aspired to do. I always wanted to help. I've met, I met Ryan years and years ago, and his passion for this team is Ryan and Emma is just unparalleled, and you can't but want to help them when they come asking, and I've been here a long time, and the city is my home now. I've had some unbelievable memories and opportunities, and my business has thrived. So I've had nothing but fond memories and recollections of Manchester, and maybe now it's my time to give a little bit back.
You've definitely been able to do that so far, because the games come thick and fast in the Elite League, and this has been your first weekend is already in the books. It's come and gone. What did you make of it? You had 2 games, 1 home, 1 away, then a lot of traveling, but you're back now after all the dust has settled. Your first weekend on the bench, what was it like for you?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was a little nervous. I mean, I've stood on the bench for hundreds of games, but this was different. It was exciting. The guys were excited. The whole organization, started a new chapter, and I'm lucky enough to be part of it, and just a small part of it. But I've talked about it in my interview last week about how we're going to do this together. It's not about me or Ryan or anybody. It's about a collective group of us going forward. And last weekend we all traveled up together and did our thing together. And it didn't go quite to plan on Friday, but Saturday, we reloaded and we got our minds back to it, and we got a result, and every single guy deserved it, top to bottom. We all contributed. The players played out of their skins, for the just to get back to that winning feeling was such a huge accomplishment for us, because it's been tough for the last few weeks, and just to get back to that feeling in the room, and the old cliches is winning is hard, but and losing it can be easy. So they played they played out of their minds. They played hard. They played for the full game, and they got what they deserved, and that was really rewarding for all of us.
It was definitely good to get a bit of a morale boost. The fans definitely felt it as well. Coming at a good time with the Air the Bear game as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. First off, I do just want to talk about the Glasgow game because listening to your post game interview there, you said that you had a couple of old habits creeping in that you were trying to kind of erase, and that maybe was the reason why that game got a bit away from your team. But you said the aim is to get better every night, and you said tomorrow we will be better. And it just so happened that that was true because we came back to the storm shelter, saw off Fife, and it was a good game in the end. Could you summarize the comeback from that point of view?
Well, the Friday night game, yeah, it didn't go to plan. We played for the first period. We were dominant, and then yeah, some things crept back in, and maybe a little bit of belief, a little bit, a goal against, and all of a sudden, oh man, here we go again type mentality. But we got to get rid of that, and that's not an overnight fix. So just keeping the guys up and keeping them believing, and then the Saturday, that's what it was all about, just believing in ourselves and believing in each other, and yeah, you got to work for it, man. Winning is hard, so nothing comes easy on the ice, especially against some of these teams. I mean, they're all good, so you've got to do something exceptional every night. And I think that's what the guys did on Saturday night. They cleaned up a couple little things, and they put in a full 60 minutes, and they got what they deserved. So yeah.
You talk there about cleaning up things and trying to get better in certain little areas. And one of the things that you actually brought up yourself after Fife's game was how well you thought we did in the face-off dot region, the center specifically. I think face-offs has been a statistic that we've struggled with to start this season, but that definitely wasn't the case against Fife. If anyone wants to hear the stat at home, we won 52 face-offs to their 27. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that, Mike, but
No, you don't.
expand on that a little bit for me. What it means for having your center performing as well as we did on Saturday.
Well, when the centers are winning draws, and it's not just I talked to the guys about this on Saturday night. It's not about the centers winning draws necessarily. The wingers have to come in and help. The D men have to be in the right places. So it's a collective five-man group to win a draw most times. And they were when you have possession off a face-off, the game, you're not chasing the game. You can be a little bit more on the front foot rather than the back foot. So when our centers are winning draws, we have more possession, and it just leads to more offense and more opportunities and less defensive play. And I'm not a huge analytic guy. I mean, I like to scroll through all the tons of analytics that are out there, and face-offs are one of them that I like to look at. Blocking shots, turnovers. Oh, these are pretty big ones. But so when I know the centers are playing, at that level, it means the wingers are as well, and then the whole team kind of just feeds off of it. And some nights the centers might not have a great night, but we have a lot of guys. I mean, there's 4 centers. I mean, we got about 8 guys that can take face-offs, so they know how to jump in, and if somebody's struggling, someone else can jump in, and like I said, it's a group of 5 that win a face-off, and then that's what they did Saturday. And it was one of the small parts of the game that actually probably contributed to the win.
Definitely so. And when you're winning those face-offs and getting an opportunity to be on the front foot and to attack the other team, you're going to get good things from it. I actually got to speak to Owen Griffiths in an earlier episode of the podcast about his success in the face-off dot. And we do have a lot of players that are equally as good in that department. But it's those things. It's the face-off wins and, as you mentioned, the block shot statistic that you look at. And that, to me, tells me that you value the hard work, you value getting behind and doing the nitty gritty plays that are able to kind of bring the more pretty success. Like everyone wants to see the points on the board, but the hard work that goes into it, from what I've gathered so far in the interview, that's what you value most, right?
It is, absolutely. It's the guy in the D zone that takes the hit from to make a play, to get the puck into the neutral zone for the other wingers or the other forwards to come and get it. The guy who got hit in the corner to make that play, he doesn't get a whole lot of recognition other than from inside the room, because we all see it and appreciate it. It's the little chips to avoid the turnovers, and the other guys supporting that decision. And it's the little things that win you games. And yeah, everybody wants to be the flashy guy that goes up the middle and scores a pretty goal, but to get to that point, you need the entire group all pushing in the same direction, pulling on the rope in the same direction. And that's the only way. And it's the little things that eventually start, paying off.
It's definitely those little things that win the games, and the little things did win the game. Our last home appearance against Fife, and we have a next home appearance not too long after. By the time this comes out, it won't be that far away. The home game against Nottingham. Guys, if you're listening and you haven't already got your tickets, you're definitely going to want to do that. It's not a game you're going to want to miss out on. But from a sort of head coaching perspective, what can the fans expect from the game against Nottingham?
Well, you're going to expect Nottingham to come in, and anytime you're playing against a team with kind of a new setup like what we've got here, they know there's going to be a push from the other side, so they know that we're going to be coming out hard. And Danny at Nottingham, he'll have watched it, and he'll have his guys ready. Nottingham, I mean, they beat the arguably maybe one of the best teams in the league last Sunday, so Nottingham are playing exceptionally well. But on any given night in this league, anybody can beat anybody. And the guy will reinforce that with the guys. And hey, listen, I said it last week, we're not going to win every game, but we're certainly going to try. We're going to push right to the end. We will work on the little things. We will tweak some things, but we're going to be ready come Friday. We've had a great week of practice again. We'll go at it again tomorrow. We'll clean up some more stuff, and the guys will be fresh and ready for Friday night at home. I mean, what better night of the week, or what better opportunity to show what you can do is at home. And going back to last Saturday, I mean, I mentioned in my interview again, the weather was foul. It was horrific. And, there was a couple thousand people in the building, and we're looking for that kind of support again this week. When the fans are in the building and they're loud like they got behind us. They could feed off our energy, and it just works in back and forth. And in the end, everybody had a great night, I think. So yeah, we just hope for more of the same.
There's definitely something to be said. In football, you call it the 12th man. You call it the extra support of having the fans behind you. And that was definitely the case on Saturday. And it needs to be the case on Friday. There's a team that's looking to change, looking to push through. And that starts again this Friday night against Nottingham in the Storm Shelter. For now, though, that is it with me and Mikey Mo. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My absolute pleasure. We look forward to seeing everybody on Friday night.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Do you have a business that you want to promote to thousands of people per week? Well, the Storm Report could be the podcast for you. Get in touch and find out how you can sponsor segments, interviews, or even the whole show. Get involved with Manchester's elite ice hockey team by contacting Mark at manchesterstorm.com. That's MARK at manchesterstorm.com. Get involved.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that little segment there with Mikey Mo. Good luck in this second weekend in the interim head coach job. I'm sure we're going to get some good results this weekend, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But we've got to get through some interesting things, because we'll do this a little bit later, but Max has some questions for the two of us, that being myself and Aidan Millen, who are your hosts for today. We're going to be talking a little bit about ourselves, because we realized about couple of weeks ago that we're getting through this and we haven't actually explained who we are to you guys listening at home, and I think it'll be good to add some context and kind of get to know us rather than just people talking at you, and I think that'd be a cool idea. But before we do that, I wanted to just touch on a little bit of what we touched on with Mikey Mo, and I want to talk about this past weekend. If you guys follow Max across his socials, you'll know that he was basically present for the entire duration of the weekend with the Storm. You were able to catch both games, and I want to ask you first about the game in Glasgow, because it didn't go our way, but Mikey Mo was pretty positive about it. What do you make of it?
It was refreshing to watch. It was, for me, a team playing without any shackles on them. Go out there, have fun, and just find out what happens. Try some things different. And for 40 minutes, it was great. A 1-0 game after 40 seconds in, holding the lead all the way through to the third period, and then unfortunately the wheels came off. 1 goal goes in, 2 goals go in, 3 goals go in, and then an empty netter at the end. And it's just, I think after that first goal that Glasgow scored, kind of sapped the life and the energy out of the bench a little bit. and just couldn't stem the bleeding from there. Unfortunately, it was just one period of unfortunate madness.
Mikey Mo mentioned that the game kind of slipped into old habits in terms of the bench. They got into old ways. What do you think kind of changed out there to turn the game on ahead per se?
What in favor of Glasgow? Yeah, after being with previous head coach Mike Flanagan, of course, we wish him well in his future endeavours. After you've been with a coach like that, where he ingrains so many game mentalities and whatever else, and he's been with us now for a good handful of months, and players are just kind of in tune to doing those things. It's kind of set to default, and that's kind of what they reverted to, unfortunately, and that's what ended up causing. Well, I don't say completely causing the wheels to fall off, but it's what got Glasgow back into the game.
I like the point of it being a refreshing start, though, with some new things coming through. And in the post game interview, Mike was talking a lot about this is Mike Morin. I should make the distinction now. Mikey was kind of mentioning that he thought there was some good new performances in there, some new things that they've been working on in the limited time that they had together in that week. And he made a strong comment saying, "We look to get better every night and we will be better tomorrow." And that's exactly what happened, Aiden, because they went back home, they welcomed Fife for the first time to the Storm Shelter this season, and they got the job done.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was the definition of a must-win game for both teams. Both teams have really struggled. Storm had lost at least the last 5 games. Fife had lost the last 4 games. You know, somebody had to win on Saturday night, and I'm very, very glad it was us. Obviously, the team came out with energy. It was interesting. For me, it was like a throwback. You know, we kind of talk about it being a change, but it was like all the systems have been simplified. Like, it was very much like watching a Finna team again, where it was like we get zone entry, we cycle the puck, we get somebody in front of the goalie, we're getting pucks on net, we're after the rebounds. And it was a safer way of playing. Now, we spoke about it a lot in previous weeks, how the D were playing high risk stretch passes out, they're getting picked off, that's causing issues. There was a lot less of that. We looked like we had a really good foothold in the game, and then we conceded the equalizer. And then we conceded again. And that has been the problem that's plagued us all season, is that we concede goals in bunches. It's, you know, you concede 1, all of a sudden 2, and sometimes 3, and sometimes even 4 go in within the space of 5 minutes, like the Cardiff game the week before. And I was scared to death. That was what we were looking at again in that second period. But we got power play, we got the equalizer, and then we got our noses in front, and it was that very tight third period. And to be honest, we were by far the better team in the third period. We had all the zone time, we had the big chances, and we looked really comfortable. I never felt like, especially when Fife pulled the goalie, I never felt we were in danger, and it felt like the empty net clincher was inevitable. So for me, it was an absolute must win. The boys got the job done. They did what they needed to do. I just hope we can build on it from here.
Just speaking on something, if anybody hasn't gone and listened to the post-game interview with Mike Morin afterwards, I asked him the question of how much is it simplifying the game and let the players just play and sticking to some sort of systems, and he answered it so eloquently. This is just like 2% systems, 98% go out there and enjoy playing hockey again. And you could really see that come through, especially over the weekend, from the 40-minute, not full, complete 60-minute performance against Glasgow, and then the steps in the right direction, finished off the job at home on against Fife.
In that very post-game interview that you did with him, he spoke about how pleased he was with the centers and with like the face-offs in particular, how well we were doing in the face-off dot, because that's been an area of the statistics that we've struggled with since the start of the season. But we definitely didn't struggle in that game last Saturday. I've got the stat here: 52 face-offs won to their 27. That's dominance at the face-off dot, and that's something more like what we're used to seeing. I mean, Stephen Johnson and Cam Critchlow, now that we've got them back in the lineup, they were the people that we knew would really help us in that area. And I mean, Mike spoke about the benefits of winning the draw from a tactical perspective, but it helps you have control of the game, and it's those little things that you need to work on now and kind of build your systems together
and do the simple things like you said, and the results should start to flow. And that is what we started to see. And all in all, I think it was a progressive weekend, is how I would describe it. Would you guys agree with that?
100%. I would as well.
Now, I'm going to do a wild transition into this next segment, which is going to be a bit of fun. I've been looking forward to this. It's been something that we've wanted to do for a little while, and I'm just going to call it the Get to Know Us segment. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you all in the capable hands of Max Artis, who's going to run this one. Take it away.
So yeah, I've been given the reins on this. Those of you out there who may or may not know, I have hosted a podcast before, and I've stolen the first period of that podcast where we get to know our guests. So these questions have been modified for the purposes of this show, and it's to try and get to know your hosts and the people around the rink and who we are on this podcast. We are missing our one cameraman, Dean Byrne, but no doubt he'll be back for another episode soon, and we'll get to know him on one of those episodes. So let's get to know our hosts. So first question, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I'll go first. I've been with the Storm for nearly a year now. I've nearly been lucky enough, and I've kind of gone from position to position. I was brought in originally to do the interviews, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was back in the Matt Ginn time, so I got to know him very well, working with him during the week, doing like little update interviews. Got to meet some of the players that way. And then I kind of transitioned. I was given more responsibility. I was able to join Max, and now we run a 2-man commentary, and that's been loads of fun. I will also help out in terms of social media content. I work with Caitlin, who we haven't been able to get on the podcast yet, but would be doing so at some point, I'm sure. But she's your social media person, and I look to help out in terms of the content as best as possible. And the last thing is the most recent thing, and that's what you're listening to right now. I've been given the reins to host this podcast, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So that's what I do for the Storm.
On to Aiden.
Yeah, I'm probably the guy who doesn't need to talk too much about what he does on match nights because it's kind of hard to miss me. So for everybody, I'm Aiden, your match night host and announcer. So that voice you hear on the microphone all night, every night, that's me. So I've been in this role now 6 years. Can't believe how time flies. Matty would have been about 5 at that point. Yeah, so I mean, when we get into the how you got into ice hockey and all that jazz, you'll hear that I've been a Storm fan since I was a kid. But then when Storm came back, I think it was 2017, I was asked to, based on previous experience, come and fill in for John Hammond for a night, and I did that for a game. Then was essentially working behind the scenes, selling 50-50 tickets for the rest of that season. And at the end of that season, John was retiring, and I was asked to step into his shoes as match night announcer.
But that's not the only thing that you MC. You do a lot of the off-ice stuff as well, with it being like the player awards nights and such things like that. Is that
yes,
true?
You'll see me meet the players as we had in the summer, and the end of season awards do as well, which I really love doing. It's interesting because I was taking over from a guy who does that for a living. John Hammond was an actual he's an actual MC, he does awards ceremonies. So it was interesting stepping into that role, especially because hockey. Yeah, I've been watching hockey 20 odd years. You know, I kind of know what I'm supposed to do there. It took me a little bit longer to get into the hosting of actual events, but I feel I'm getting the hang of it now. I was quite happy with how awards night went. I did a nice speech about how we're going to beat Guildford, and that went really well. Like a week later, that's about that the better. Hopefully, we forget to do a little speech in this year's. It'll have a more pleasant ending.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. And I think my voice doesn't need too many introductions. People may have heard my voice on the highlights on the webcast. Maybe don't know my face too much. I'm not really on camera all that often, apart from maybe on the forecast where I get to share the screen with you lovely boys on there. But I've been doing the play-by-play commentary for a full season and a bit. I did 5 games, not last year, but the year before, filling in for one John O'Bullard and others. And then I took the reins of the webcast and not looked back. I've got a 100% record so far, and I hope to keep it going. And hope to do some more interviews and stuff, and some more of this. So that's what I do on match nights. I do the play-by-play commentary on the webcast.
Thought I'd be a little bit cheeky here and jump in during the edit to introduce myself. My name is Matt. I'm the other Matt on the team, alongside Matty Finnegan. I am Storm TV's digital media producer, which in short means I produce a lot of the media, a lot of the footage and videos that you see on Match Night, on things like the Storm TV webcast, on our YouTube channel, as well as various other platforms. It is not just me, I'm joined by a whole host of brilliant folks, with the likes of Dan Brennan, our Storm TV manager, and obviously Caitlin, our social media strategist. We all come together to create some great content for you guys. But the likes of editing the podcast, producing the forecast, and the webcast, a lot of that comes down to me. But that's enough from me. I'm usually behind the scenes, so I will pass it back over to Max, Aidan, and Matty, and I'll let them continue.
So we'll move to our second question. Aidan, you kind of touched on it a little bit, so I'll let you run with it first. It's how did you discover ice hockey?
I discovered ice hockey as a 12-year-old, 1995, a while ago. Yeah, I was taken by my dad's friend to the MEN Arena in Storm's first season. There were only a handful of games in at that point. They were playing the Murrayfield Racers.
Wow.
And that first season that Storm were in existence in the old British Division 1, I'd have been bored to tears with that hockey now, because Storm were winning by like 6, 7, 8 goals a night. But as a 12-year-old who'd never seen hockey before, it was like the best night ever. Like, the goals are just going in left, right, and center. There was fights. You had the big show. You had the arena, the video wall cube thing. You had the big intro. Like, as a 12-year-old, it was just like the best thing. And from that day on, I was just hooked. Kept going, got a season ticket. My family started going the season after that. And we kept going all the way through until Storm went bust in 2002. But then I was back with Phoenix as season ticket holder 2004. They mothballed for 2 years, came back. I went back with them. And after a couple of years, I actually ended up working the match night for the Phoenix as an announcer for them. It was very lucky that as I'd started to play rec hockey, my coach was the match night director at the Phoenix. And when their announcer left mid-season, I just said, any chance I can have a go at that? And that's how I got my foot in the door. Did a few years with Phoenix until they dropped into the EPL. At that point, I kind of lost interest with it to an extent. And then I moved to Nottingham a few years after that. And it was me thinking I was done with Manchester hockey, not much there for me anymore. And then after I lived in Nottingham for a year, the big announcement, Manchester Storm are back. And my childhood team, the franchise, are just so close to me. And then I was just like, for God's sake, I've traveled to Manchester every weekend from Nottingham to go take these. And that's what I did for the first couple of years. It was literally like putting the miles in and traveling back and forth and supporting the team. But pestering Neil Russell, going, by the way, I used to do some work for Phoenix, and I'd very much like to come on board the match night crew at some point. And after 2 years of mithering, not getting anywhere, he left, and then a week later, Finner took over. Well, I'll tell a lie. Finner and Neil were kind of in at the same time, but Neil quickly left. And that's when a week later, I got an email from Finner going, oh, John's not there this week. Can you come and MC for us? And the rest is history. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Probably one that's a little bit shorter is Matty's. What was your intro to hockey?
I'm not sure how many of the jokes actually make it to the podcast that goes out to you guys at home, but there's a lot of jokes that take place in the recording of these podcasts, made it how much younger I am than Aidan and all those comparisons. And I think this isn't going to do me any favors.
I know I'm the oldest, but Max is like with me as well. Like, we're like same generation. Let's not just
Max is a fence sitter in this situation because he can relate to me and you. But it's
He's
mainly just
to my age than yours, mate.
I am, yeah. I'm honestly all for trying to get you on my side, but it's just not.
You've never heard of Muse?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, great band, so I've been told. But yeah, so, there's a bit of an age gap, you could say. I turn 21 in the coming March, so there's a significant age gap. And my hockey story, you're right, is a lot shorter in years than Aidan's would be, but I've enjoyed it probably all the same. I first got into it. It was different because I lived abroad,
So for me, I was able to watch lots of NHL hockey, which I think is how a lot of people over here might have started. I mean, there's people that might have been able to, oh, what's this taking place at the MEN, and then go and see it that way. But there's a massive market over in America and in Canada. And I went to the motherland of hockey. I went to Canada, more specifically Toronto, and I got to watch a shout out to these guys, the Oshawa Generals. I got to watch an Oshawa Generals game versus the Ottawa 67s, I want to say. And we got really good seats, almost right by the glass. And I think there was a fight almost right in front of me. And there was like really like skillful goals that you'd be lucky to see in the NHL today. I couldn't tell you any names from the team, unfortunately. I might have to go back and research that. But it was a really, really good game. And for someone that had never seen ice hockey before, it was one of those things that just grabs you, and I just loved it as a young child. And I've been watching it ever since. I discovered the sport of hockey in Toronto, so naturally that is my NHL team. And then when moving back to Manchester for university, the Storm was just oh so convenient, and I started going to Storm games. So my Storm journey is relatively short as well, but I'm loving it so far. But it was originally going to the motherland of hockey itself that got me into it. What about you, Max?
For me, probably a little bit not longer than your story, but shorter than Aiden's, because I'm aware of time and stuff we've got going on here. I don't want to bore the listeners too much. But started when I was 10 years old, and I can attribute my love for hockey down to one person, and I'm glad that I can call him one of my best friends, a guy called Alex Gaich. You won't remember this, Matthew, but you used to be able to go out onto the street and play and knock on people's doors and see if they were coming out to play, and rather than just texting or WhatsApping. You used to have to actually go around.
Nice.
You used to have to actually go around and physically talk to somebody. It was great. But yeah, we played out on the street for a couple of years. I played roller hockey. I managed to get to the dizzy heights at the age of 12, under 12s and under 14s to play for GB roller hockey. Never really made it in ice hockey. And then being around Nottingham and the arena and the rink and the right people, obviously get watching the sport and fell in love with it from there. Player that I kind of sold me on ice hockey was a guy called Pavel Bure, called the Russian Rocket. Played for the Vancouver Canucks, which is my NHL team, and also one of the reasons why I wear the number that I wear. He wore 96 for one season, and that's kind of my intro to hockey, is just playing on the street with some absolutely gems of friends and mates.
And I think while we're talking about ourselves, I think it's very worthwhile sharing the story of how me and Max know each other. Because me and Max didn't just meet on the Storm Match Night crew. We're actually teammates and have been teammates for the last 10 years.
I know.
We both proudly represent the Nottingham Outlaws.
Yeah.
Well,
yes,
I do when I've got a healthy knee. It's been just over a year for me since I've been on the ice. But I will be back. We will be teammates once again.
We will indeed. Don't stand in front of the net. It's not a good idea.
Yes. Yeah, we need to tell that story, mate. If we're doing the get to know you stuff.
Well, okay. Well, I think you'll tell it a lot better because I think you're on the.
I was on the receiving end. Yeah, it's fair to say. So as we all know, like one of the things as a forward is you need to screen the goalie. You got to make yourself a net presence. That was my job on this particular game. Max was on the blue line. We might have even been on the power play. There's me doing my best to screen the goalie. Basically, Max put it either side of me, and I get it in the net, or I can get a nice rebound. What does he do? Hits me straight in the balls. Thanks a lot. There is photographic evidence of me on the ice in pain, and everybody around me laughing.
But a great shot blocker though. Always been a great shot blocker.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Best accuracy I've had in years of playing. Couldn't pick a corner, but my gosh, I can hit the middle of a person. Before we get too derailed, I kind of went into a little bit on the answer on this one. Is do you have a player that you idolize? Obviously, I spoke about Pavel Bure, and I could go and list a whole host of Vancouver Canucks, from the Sedins to Bertuzzi, Marcus Naslund, Mason Raymond, and all those guys that were in the kind of 2010, 2011 Cup run were really kind of who I idoled, and a little bit before that as well with Naslund and Bertuzzi. I think they were around 06, 08. But I'll throw it to Aiden first. 'Cause I think you might come up with some interesting answers here. So, do you have a player that you idolize?
I wouldn't go so far as to say idolized, but certainly had a favourite. When that first season as a Storm fan, for me, it was Hilton Ruggles. I knew straight away that this was the guy who was going to put up a lot of points, and he's still the all-time leading point scorer for the Storm, pretty much off the basis of that one season. I think he was putting up an average something like 4 points a night or something silly, just because the way that hockey was in British Division 1 back then is I think most teams had 3 imports and then the rest of it was Brits. But there was like this massive skill gap between your imports and the Brits. And like so your imports just put up crazy points. And Hilton was he had a very unique style. He skated different to everybody else. He had a very weird he kind of shot like how to describe it as a hockey player. You kind of like you straight ahead, and it's almost like not quite golf, but like where you're shooting from almost like you're facing sideways. Hilton would face the net, but then have the puck sideways and go. It's hard to describe it without the use of video and my old memory. But yeah, he just stood out, and he also had the odd scrap, which always helped as well. So yeah, for me, Hilton Ruggles.
Fair enough. Matty, on to you.
Well, going back into what attracted me to the game, there was a lot of. I want to say I might throw a bit of a curveball here. I think most of you would expect me to say Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, because that was around the time I started enjoying hockey, was when they were drafted and that sort of thing. That's been about as long as I've been around to experience hockey, there or thereabouts. And however, it's the warriorness, it's the toughness of the hockey players in comparison to other sports that really got me. Because watching football and stuff all my life, sometimes you just think that a player could use a good punch. And I feel like hockey is a sport that gives you that sort of conclusion. And I really enjoyed that. So people like Ryan Reeves and Wayne Simmons, people like that have been really fun to watch over the years for myself. And I think that we have a couple up and coming guys that are starting to get into that as well. Matt Rempe has made social media recently. If people out there haven't seen that, you should definitely try search that up if hockey fights are a thing for you. Yeah, Mitch Marner for me is another one. I think you've got different players for different attributes of the game, different styles of the game. I would say you players like Ryan Reeves, but then also you players like Mitch Marner. They couldn't be further from different hockey players if you tried. They're on either ends of the hockey spectrum, but for different reasons alike, they are up there with what's got me and what's kept me in ice hockey, I would say.
We'll go on to my final question, and probably one that I'd like to hear from those that are listening as well, is when the fixtures come out, are there any games out? I'm going to put a caveat on this as well. The whiteout games and the Christmas games are off the table. But are there any kind of games that immediately jump out to you as to, I'm looking forward to seeing those ones?
For me, it's Nottingham away.
Well, yeah,
matches I can walk to.
Makes life easy. Yeah, it makes life easy. For yourself, Matty?
I think that one makes sense for you guys, but a bit more of a trek for me living in central Manchester. But I look forward to the games that I think there's going to be a lot of tension between games that are going to be relatively hotly contested, but where you know that both teams will bring their all. I think there's certain games on the calendar that you look at that you think, that those teams don't really have much competition going. Maybe with the likes of the Challenge Cup and the way that's done now, they might not play each other as much, so there's not much of a chance to develop a rivalry over a season. When the fixture list comes out, for me, as a Storm fan, first and foremost, I often look to your Sheffield fixtures. When are they? And make sure I can definitely be there, and which away games can I go to? But then I think as the season goes on, you get different sorts of matchups, different sorts of rivalries that you get throughout a season. So now if you were to ask me right here, right now, it's those Cardiff Devils games. I'd go to every single one of them because of the way that rivalry has boiled and boiled and boiled. I definitely look to things like that on the calendar for the Elite League, that's for sure. But that will do it for the Get to Know Us segment. Hopefully you feel just that little bit closer to us now. We're not just talking in your ears, it's people that you actually feel like you're a little bit closer to. But we are going to turn back to talking in your ears. We're going to be previewing the weekend to come. We have 2 games, home and away. You know the drill by now. First game being a home game this Friday against Nottingham before an away trip down to Cardiff. I'll go to Aiden first for the Nottingham game. We are currently head to head. We've played 3 games, we've won one of them, and we've lost the other 2. So there's a chance to tie up the head to head standings in this one. What do you think would let us do it?
Well, we need to repeat periods 1 and 3, I would say, from last Saturday. We have to ensure that if you discount a shutout, the inevitable goal from the opposition, we have to keep it to the 1 goal. It can't snowball into goals 2, 3, 4. This Panthers team are doing well so far this season. It's a major improvement on the last few seasons, I would say. They're starting to sort of climb the league, comfortably ahead of us in the league on points right now. Sam Hare is doing what Sam Hare does. He's currently top of their point standings, and they've finally got over the hump of a win over Sheffield a few weeks ago. They beat Cardiff last week, so their season's really starting to pick up some steam. Ryan Bednard, he's improving their goalie situation, which they've often struggled with over the last few years. So it's going to be a tough ask. But if Storm do what they're capable of doing, especially at home now, because that's one thing. When we simplify the system, when we do it that way, the rink really becomes an asset for us. That tighter bear pit type of rink that we have, we really play to the strengths of it. And it'll be interesting to see if we come out that way and how Nottingham handle it.
It's certainly interesting that the most recent game for both teams that will be playing this weekend was against each other. The Panthers at home beating the Devils 3-1. I wonder if there's any sort of momentum that both teams can take from the past weekend. The Panthers having a good weekend, the Storm having a bit of a resurgence weekend. There's momentum riding into both, but somebody is going to come out on top. And I wonder, Max, what your thoughts are towards that as a Nottingham native.
I don't know. Nottingham are riding high right now. They look scary, and that's the first time that a Nottingham team has looked scary for, like Aiden said, the past couple of years. And yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. They're going to come into the Storm shelter, absolutely guns are blazing, and it's going to be down to the Storm to kind of weather the attack, take it on the chin for maybe the first 15, 20 minutes or so, and try and hit back in the later stages of the game. It's going to be a nail biter. That one, like you were saying about Cardiff games, this one is going to be one to watch as well.
I'll give you guys listening at home a little bit of information to kind of take forward into this home game. I think something that we're going to have to try and do is keep it to a low scoring affair, because Nottingham are so good at keeping the puck out of their net this year. That's backed by 2 statistics I've got in front of me in terms of goals against in general, but their goals against average as well. They've only been able to, they're third in terms of goals allowed, which means they have the third least goals conceded so far this season with 44. And they concede less than 3 a game, which is really, really good this season. That's also good enough for third. Obviously, Cardiff are running away with some of these statistics at the minute, and we'll get to that in a little bit, don't you worry. But in terms of keeping the puck out of their own net, Nottingham have been really good at that so far under Danny Stewart. And that's going to be something that the Storm are going to have to contend with. They'll be really tasked with trying to score goals, as well as having to keep the puck out of their own net themselves. And it's going to be a challenge, but it's one that we can ride into with the momentum of our previous win last week against Fife, and we'll see what that can do for us. Mikey Mo was in good spirits earlier about how we can approach that game, and who knows, maybe, Max, if we perform well in that game, we can ride double momentum into our away fixture this weekend against Cardiff.
Well, I think playing a good home game against Nottingham is going to set us up well to take on the Cardiff Devils. They've only lost 3 in their last 7, and they're rolling into the next fixture against the Storm. Probably want to get back onto winning ways. They've lost 2 back-to-backs, one which was in overtime against the Belfast Giants. They're still taking a point out of that, and they've also got European hockey to speak of. Sheffield Steelers, obviously, we know their European trip has ended, but the Cardiff Devils are marching on into the final of the Continental Cup, so that's also on their minds as well. Maybe they're resting bodies for that. maybe their tactics change a little bit, playing against European style of play with teams such as from Kazakhstan and Poland and Italy and other places as such, playing in that final. So yeah, they're going to be fun. They're going to be fun to play against. I think that one's going to be even tighter than the Nottingham game. Excuse me, get my words out. Keeping that one to a one goal differential will be key. Cardiff do like to run the score up and get themselves a healthy lead and play with that lead, maybe 2 to 3 goals. If Storm can keep it within one, anything can happen.
Definitely. There's been a lot of goals in the meetings between these two sides. I mean, the goal that won the game for the Storm have played the Devils 4 times so far, and they've only won one of those meetings, and it was in the away fixture. So we have won on that ice pad already this season, but we did it in overtime, and it was a 6-5 game. So there's a lot of goals in this fixture, and I want to say as a theme, and I'll see if you agree with me on this, Aidan, but I think as a theme, we should try and keep the puck out of our own net before we try and score. I think goals are going to happen in this game, and we just need to make sure that we're on the beneficiary of that. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, one feature of games against Cardiff so far this season is we've looked a much closer match for them in their rink than when we have in ours. Like the two times Cardiff have been to our rink, it's been a very one-sided game. In Cardiff's eyes, we've got 1 win and 1 tight loss. And the game plan last time that we went in there, we did try to go toe-to-toe with them. We only just lost. So I would want to see us not too afraid of Cardiff in their own rink. Keep doing that. I think we've obviously got to keep the puck out of the net. But I don't want to play too much on the counter-attack, which sometimes is what you do in a road game against like one of the bigger teams. But it'll be intriguing to see which way it goes.
Well, it's definitely going to be a tough task this weekend for Mike Moran's second weekend in charge of the Manchester Storm. Nottingham and Cardiff are 2 teams that have been rolling either this season or rolling at the minute. They're definitely 2 teams that you're going to want to try and be at your best to beat. And that first game, the first chance you get to see your Manchester Storm in action is this Friday. It is the only home game of the season left before Christmas. So if you want to get some last-minute Christmas shopping here down at the Storm Shelter, then you're going to want to do that this weekend. That's Friday the 13th. By the time this goes out, it might even be tonight. Get down there. We'd love to see you now that you know a little bit more about us. Come and say hi. I hope you've really enjoyed this episode, but for now, that's it, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for listening.
That was the Storm Report, brought to you by Storm TV. Tune in next week for more exclusive insights. Tickets on sale now at manchesterstorm.com.